My name is Leonie Fleischmann, and I am co-chair of Masorti. I was lucky enough to find myself part of the movement through Noam. Although my parents were members of the United Synagogue, they sent me on summer camp, and I have been involved in Masorti ever since. And I have the pleasure of being joined by three other individuals who have all found their way into Masorti Judaism as well. So I would like you to introduce yourselves, to tell us a bit about how your Jewish life began and what was perhaps missing, or what more were you searching for through that Jewish journey. So let's start with you, Alexis.
I am currently a member of the Chavurah community, which is affiliated to Masorti. It's a fairly new community for families who are interested in a Jewish community and Jewish ritual and being part of something Jewish, but are less interested in having that space around shul and synagogue. My journey started when I was born. I grew up fairly Orthodox, going to shul. I went to a Jewish school. I learned a lot of Jewish stuff throughout my life, and I was also very active in Bnei Akiva, growing up and as a young adult. But at some point, I kind of lost. I drifted. I didn't find myself in that space. And when I after I'd got married and had children, I was searching for some form of Jewish community that was open and liberal and accepting, and where I could find a home, but at the same time, my whole family could find a home, and my wife is more secular, less Jewish affiliated, and so that was a hard space to find. But Masorti, through the Chavurah, we found a space that we could mold to fit us both, and the Chavurah is very much connected to Masorti and Masorti's values. So that's how I arrived at Masorti and found sort of a home within it.
Hi, I'm Anthony Lazarus McGrill, and I'm a final year rabbinical student and also the incoming rabbi at Hatchen Masorti Synagogue, soon to be called Mosaic Masorti. And unlike Alexis, I grew up kind of at the far liberal end of the Jewish community. My family's a very purist, orthodox sort of liberalism, which felt very invested in stripping back Jewish rituals so that we were left with a pure ethical monotheism. And although when I was younger, I found it really intellectually compelling, as I grew older, I also drifted because I didn't feel like I had very much to bite into. It felt like lots of those ethical values that we spent so much time talking about were pretty universal. And as my peers drifted away, I could see they weren't less ethical or less decent people. What I think was really missing was a sense of obligation and that thick textured Jewish life that sees our values and our ethics emerging through our Jewish practice. I also didn't grow up in a very tight-knit community. I grew up living a very long way away from the synagogue. Its community was spread all over London. I never had Friday night meals with other families in the community. And it felt like quite a cold sort of Judaism for me. And that was a bit of a hole. I guess that's kind of where I come from and what I found in a much more whole form once I came to Masorti.
Great, thank you very much, Anthony. Now, Alon, you have a slightly different story since that you grew up in Masorti Judaism. So could you tell us a bit about what it was like to grow up in Masorti Judaism and through Noam?
Yeah, my name's Alon, and so I currently work for Our Second Home, which is a youth movement for young refugees and migrants. And I, as Leonie said, really grew up in Masorti and Noam, really deeply involved, really deeply embedded in that community. And I think as I've gotten older, I've really understood the value of that and the importance of that to me, and the importance of community in general to people, and how lucky I feel to have that when I was younger. And I think, I went to New North London Synagogue, and I was a really active member of Noam, went on the camps, became a leader, still was involved up until today. I'm still involved in Noam. And I think it really gave me, firstly, lots of kind of friendships and relationships that both personal in terms of people that I'm still really close to now, and also professional people who I've learned a lot from, that I work alongside. I think also it gave me an opportunity to practice different skills and just doing things and giving things a go, and that, like, you know, giving yourself a bit of the confidence to just try stuff out and try new things, and also kind of the values of kind of social action and social justice and making a difference. And I think that fits quite well with the kind of skills bit of, like, just if things don't feel right or feel good, trying something different, which I don't think I might not have the confidence to do if I hadn't been part of that community when I was younger. So yeah, I feel very blessed to have been part of that community and have that kind of warmth and support as I was growing up to allow me to kind of be the person that I wanted to be today.
Thank you very much. So perhaps to Alexis and Anthony, could you tell us some more about how you found your way into Masorti Judaism and what it was about Masorti Judaism that attracted you or perhaps filled some of those gaps that you identified?
The main thing I found with Masorti that jumps out is the kind of the link between the traditional side of things, which I'm very comfortable with, but also the creative space within that. Through the Chavurah, we managed to, everybody has kind of an ability to mold and shape their Jewish life within the community, the things that are important to us as kind of parents and as people within a community. We have the space to get in there. We've got community singing and prayer together. We have community eating together, which is always a massive thing through Judaism. It's been, at least through my story of Judaism, and seems to continue that way. And the traditional element is something that I've found that I still enjoy. I occasionally yearn for the tunes, the singing that I grew up with, and we've able to find a space within Masorti for that, as well as just being able to breathe and be me within that space, and not have to shape myself into what's acceptable and what should be and what needs to be or has to be, because that what has to be is actually is much more flexible within Masorti, and that's really enlightening for me and from the background that I've come from, and that's a massive, I guess, gap or thing that Masorti brings to my life.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Alexis. And Anthony?
I found my way to Masorti when I was at university, and a school friend of mine who had been involved in Noam was running the Progressive Jewish Society. And I went along first to a hummus making session and then to Minyan. And it was just revelatory to meet these young people who were so charged up with their values and had this love of Jewish practice. And for the first time, I could really see how the intensity of their davening together was deeply, deeply connected to the intensity with which they argued about the world over a Friday night dinner, and the intensity which they've then brought out into the world. The people who were running the Minyan at that point are now doctors and social workers and amazing people. And through their support, they guided me towards Noam, who helped me and supported me to go to study in the conservative yeshiva, and have also provided me support during my progress towards and through training to become a rabbi. And now that I am working more deeply within the Masorti community at Mosaic Masorti, I see the movement supporting this creation of institutions and communities that foster the values that we all hold so dear. And that's why I really believe in Masorti. I believe it's, I don't want to say a hothouse, but it's a space in which the values and the practices, which I think go hand in hand and are so integral to being Jewish, are made really manifest and actual. And that's what I believe in.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anthony. And Alon, perhaps you could tell us a bit more about how Masorti Judaism has played a role in your adult life.
Kind of following off from what Anthony was saying, actually, it's really given me those, really embedded those Jewish values in me and allowed me to practice them very practically. So being able to kind of take those Jewish values and live them is, I think, what Masorti has really given me. And I think it comes back to a little bit about what I was saying before about the ability to kind of think for myself, to think critically about kind of my place in my communities and in the world, and to act. And so an example for me is my involvement in our second home. Like I said at the beginning, a youth movement for young refugees and migrants, and was started by Noam alumni and was really supported by Masorti. I think what we all are passionate about is giving young people who might not have had those experiences that I spoke about earlier, of community, of warmth and support, the kind of opportunity to have that. And that was what we were really passionate about. And I think for me, that felt like an important expression of Judaism and of my Masorti Judaism. And yeah, I think it's kind of a nice example of what I think Masorti has given me in terms of the kind of the thinking behind doing that. But also the skills and the relationships and the confidence to kind of go out and do that, and the tools to kind of live in the way that I want to live. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So I think what we have here are three really inspiring stories of how individuals found their way to Masorti Judaism, and how Masorti Judaism has really provided a home for them. And they're three different homes, essentially, which is what I think is one of the beauty of Masorti Judaism, that we have a very rich framework which different people can find their way into and find a true home for themselves. And I think it's also three wonderful examples of how Masorti Judaism is innovating and supporting new ways of being in the world. We have an example of creating new meaningful community that met the needs of the individuals involved. We have Noam and Marom developing the next generation of young people who are going out into the world and doing really incredible and important things. And then we have the ability to support and develop new leadership so that our existing communities can flourish and can thrive. And this is the work that we really want to be doing, to provide new opportunities and further opportunities for people to find their home in Masorti Judaism.